Just wanted to welcome you all to our live stream today. Today we're going to have a little different angle for you. You're going to actually get to see some of the parts we're going to be talking about as we talk about leaf blowers. And it's not just about the leaf blower that you see here. We actually have another brand here to talk about that's gas. This one's electric. But the fun part about today is we have an Echo model number 2B2620 leaf blower to give away. Now this is an awesome machine. It's I'll give you the specs on it as we go through the live so you know what you're having a chance to get. So you know, all you need to do in order to get your name put in for the draw is to just send us a question with your email. And if you're on TikTok, same sort of thing. Just send us an email from your own email account. Tell us where you're from and your name, and you'll be put into the draw. And at the end of the live, we'll be drawing for it, and you could find out today if you're going to be getting one of these wonderful leaf blowers. So just comment in the chat, or you can email at video@fix.com. So I'll just say that again. If you're TikTok and you're looking to submit a question so you can be entered into the draw, you're going to want to put into the chat or through email to video@fix.com. There we go. Just so you think my arms are that long, Brian's here with us today helping out, and of course Sarah. Say hi, Sarah.
Hello, everyone.
Sarah's here. She's in the background monitoring for questions and help fellow ballads because we're getting a lot of interest in this leaf blower today. So we look forward to seeing some information from you guys. And at the same time, if you don't mind, if you're sending in your information, just let us know where you're from. Love to be able to kind of place you to know where our customers are viewing from. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about leaf blowers. So we got two versions. We have an electric one, and I mean a cordless electric, battery powered. You may recognize the colors, so you may know what the brand is. But cordless, battery powered. So this is a fairly, as far as the lineup for this manufacturer, it's one of the lower ones. And the gas-powered one is sort of mid-range leaf blower. And the one we're giving away is sort of another level up above that again. So it's a great little machine. Okay, so let's talk about leaf blowers. What's in them? So this is this is the battery one. And I'll slip the battery in it, even though I got the side cover off. So what do we got? We got a power supply. We got a battery, of course. That's our power supply. Now, this is a circuit board. This is what does some really cool stuff in this particular manufacturer. Anyway, I'll explain that a little bit. But we have our wiring harness that goes up to our control switch. And you see that runs the blower. I'm going to get the nozzle out of the way here so I can show you what's happening inside so you can see what that looks like. Oh, it actually works. That's why the camera shook. Okay, we won't do that because we'll wind up blowing the cameras right off the stand. Anyway, that's basically what's in every leaf blower, whether it's electric or whether it's a cordless. It's as simple as that. You've got a DC motor. This is an 18-volt system, so it's an 18-volt motor with no load, and that means there would be no fan blade on there to be pushing air. That motor will go from 0 to 18,000 revolutions per minute. That's pretty fast. Now, with the blower on there, it's, of course, because it's pushing air, go to slow it down some, but it is fully variable speed, which is kind of nice because if you're only looking to do a little cleanup in a small area, you can just squeeze that trigger a little bit and you're just going to get a pulse of air that'll do the job, or as much air as you need by just squeezing the trigger. So pretty straightforward. and relatively easy to service. The motor unit comes in assembly. Batteries, of course, are normal wear and tear. Now the circuit board is a little unique. This circuit board is actually monitoring the amount of power coming from the battery compared to what the motor is using. So it's a little bit of a protection system. One, gives you the speed control. Two, it also knows if the battery's starting to get low. If the battery's getting low, this unit will shut itself off to protect the motor and the battery. So this is a little bit extra technology that you'll find in this brand. Not everyone has that makes leaf blowers, but this one kind of adds to the price, but it's a great feature because you're not going to burn out the motor and you're not going to toast your battery. And everybody knows, batteries are not the cheapest thing in the world. So that's basically what's in your cordless leaf blower. Now this one is, fairly powerful. It's almost equivalent to this gas one. And I don't know who all that uses a leaf blower, if you're just using it for one particular thing, just clearing the walkways. But you can also use them for cleaning off your car in the wintertime. Those of you who have that sort of a climate where you get that light powdery snow, there's nothing that clears your car off or your driveway off faster than a leaf blower. But honestly, these cordless ones with batteries do a great job, and they're a little bit lighter than the gas one. But in the cold weather and the amount of energy these blower motors draw, the batteries die pretty quick. So may not be the best thing to use in the winter compared to a gas one, but you can definitely use a leaf blower. And the other nice thing as far as these go is we sell the parts for them. So if you're having a problem or you're doing regular maintenance to your leaf blower and you need some parts, you can go to our website, put in your model number. Something like some of these models with gas engines, you need to put your serial number in. It'll pull up the exact breakdown for your product, and then you're able to get a parts list, and you'll be able to see your part, be able to order it. You'll know how much it's costing you, and it can be shipped directly to your home. You can't get much easier than that. And most of the parts on this equipment, you as a homeowner or a contractor can easily do the repairs yourself. So let's see what's inside a gas one. So of course they are typically pull start. And basically the dogs engage into the flywheel, and that's what turns it. And if you're looking to replace the cord, you can see just how easy it is. You're just simply removing the screws to get at this housing, to remove it from the rest of the tool, and then you're just going to get your new line, and they typically come, if you order by part number, you'll get the proper length for your starter. A lot of folks will change their own cords that they'll pick up somewhere else, and they'll have to cut it, and if you cut it too short, then you get very little cord to pull, and you wind up either damaging the starter or ripping the starter handle apart. So it's always wisest to order the part number for your machine so you get the right length, you get the right diameter of string. If you go too thick, it's going to bind. If you go too thin, it's going to break. So order the right part number. Make sure it's an OEM part number. In other words, you're ordering the same part that the manufacturer put in the tool when they made it. There's a lot of other stuff out there that's not OEM, and it may look the same, maybe prettier pictures and stuff like that when you're looking online, but you will find that there are some drawbacks. And we'll be talking more about that in other videos, but it's something you need to know, that you may think you're saving a little money up front, but chances are in the long run it's going to cost you more. Anyway, that's just a little blurb we'll get back to later. Oh, Brian's bringing a whole handful of ballads. Oh, that's awesome, folks. Fantastic. Every one of those names are in the draw, and towards the end of our live stream, we'll be drawing one of those names out, and they're going to be getting that awesome Echo chainsaw. Not a chainsaw, Chris. We're going to be giving away an Echo leaf blower, a model PB2620. This guy.
We did give away a chainsaw before, so
You're,
it's
yeah,
top of mind.
yeah,
We've
that's it.
done, yeah, if
Yeah,
this is your first time joining our streams, we've
yeah,
done a lawnmower giveaway, we've done a chainsaw, we're
yeah,
now on the leaf blower,
yep,
thanks to Echo.
yep.
Do we want to get to a couple of questions that people have
Sure.
submitted? Right. All right. One is on different oil mixes and why are there different ones? Which type would you recommend?
Oh, great question. Okay, so the manufacturer, when they build the engine, they determine what mixture is the best for their design. So when you talk about a mixture such as 40 to 1, 50 to 1, it's 50 parts gas to 1 part oil. So if we're talking ounces to ounces, that's what you're looking at. That's what the difference is. So a machine that runs on 40 to 1 means it's got a little bit more oil ratio than it does gas compared to 50 to 1. That provides a bit more lubrication. So if I mix them up, what's the harm? Well, if I wind up going and putting in the mix that's got a little bit too much oil, I'm not going to wind up having an issue with seizing the engine, but I may wind up, when I'm running this off for a length of time, I'm going to wind up building up some carbon. So yeah, so there's our email address, just especially for our TikTok friends. If you want to get into the draw, by all means, there's your email address. Sorry, there's your email address to send it to, video@fix.com, and give us your information and let us know where you're from so we can kind of get an idea where our followers are. And we know we've got them all over the place, including Europe and South America. So we're really happy to hear from all of you. So getting back to the mixture thing, if you were to go the other way and use the fuel mixture that's a little lighter oil content, you do risk you run the risk of using the tool. It's going to get too hot, and it could potentially have an issue where it may overheat and score the cylinder and make it a very expensive repair. What else you got, Sarah?
All right, we have a question specifically on Echo Jetpack leaf blowers and what sort of maintenance they should do to prepare for the season.
Great question. So that's a beautiful machine. The backpack is just fantastic. A lot of contractors are using them, and they get good reliability. And again, you can get any parts you need for them, through us as well. Maintenance is typical, the same that you'll find on pretty well any 2 or 4-stroke engine. You've got an air filter, and that's something to keep in mind for those of you using those backpacks in the winter conditions, is that air filter can very well start to plug up with snow and water and restrict airflow. So you just have to watch that piece of it. But typically, being 2-stroke engines, you don't have oil in the sump that you have to worry about changing, but you want to make sure your air filter is in good shape. It's a great idea to replace a fuel filter whenever you have that maintenance schedule set up. Spark plug is ideal as well. And those things just make it so much easier for it to start. You also want to just inspect your fuel lines, make sure that you're not seeing any gas leaking from any of the fuel lines or connections, or that there's no cracks or leaks just from age and normal wear and tear. Make sure that your gas cap seals tightly and doesn't leak, and you'll find your tool will run. It'll be there for you when you want it. It'll start when you want it, and it'll be something that's trustworthy and reliable.
All right, moving on to another question that came in. What is the airspeed of the blower? We'll say maybe our prize blower?
Well, yeah,
All the blowers?
let's talk about the prize one. So there's a bunch of different ways they market them and advertise them, but you'll tend to find that the major brands out there give you a lot of information about airflow. They'll give you air speed, but the thing that really counts with leaf blower is volume of air. Not just how fast it's going, but how much air is moving that fast. So the more volume means you have more performance. You're going to be able to push more material with it. So for example, the one we're giving away, it's listed at 456 cubic feet per minute, which also equates to where are we here? Just looking at the information. So it's 172 miles an hour. And if you're into the metric system, that's 276 kilometers per hour. So, and it also produces 15 newtons per meter squared for pushing of air. So that's typical for all the machines we have here today. This one that's on the bench, the cordless one I showed you, are all pretty close to that same amount. The difference being with the cordless one is its motor is rated differently. Like I said, it does 0 to 18,000 RPMs, but it moves pretty well the same amount of air as these gas ones. So just for example, this one on the bench is going to move about 425 cubic feet per minute. The cordless one that I showed you does 459 cubic feet per minute. And the giveaway one is 456 cubic feet per minute. So they're all pretty close in the volume that they'll move. Now there's no question, the electric ones, you know, has some superiority where it's a little bit lighter as compared to the gas engine styles, but you're talking about battery capacity. So the gas ones, you're going to be able to do more for longer periods of time before you have to refuel, compared to the battery one where you're going to have to come and swap out batteries. And that too will depend on the size of the battery. Depending on the make, you'll sometimes have options as to how long. So this particular battery is rated at 3 amp hours. So from a marketing perspective, under ideal conditions and everything being what it should be, this battery is supposed to last 3 hours. Now, they also make ones that are 5, they make them that are 6. So there are options. There's even a 1.5, which you would never want to use on a leaf blower. But the idea is you can get more capacity if you want it. Some are just, you know, some of them are 40-volt systems, and they're just one big battery, and they'll be rated for like 3 or 5 hours. So, but the gas ones, certainly for what they hold for gas, most of these hold. Where's my little chart? They hold about the same amount of gas for the two of them. And that's pretty much around small tanks, but about 0.5 of a liter or 0.13 of a gallon. So the tanks are small, but you'll get more performance, longer runtime than you will with the electric. And again, we were talking about maintenance earlier with someone, and inside here, now I do have fuel, so I have to be careful how I tip this, but inside, I don't know if I can get it so you can see the fuel filter. No, sorry about that, but there is a fuel filter in there, very easy to change, and it's something that's a great item when you're doing your maintenance to change up. Because a plug filter, you'll get restricted fuel, and you'll get bad mixture, and then you just got a lack of performance. What other question you got there, Sarah?
All right. I'm going to switch to some of our email submissions. Let's see. All right, this one is, a lot of times I'll have to replace or clean the screen for the spark arrestor. I'm wondering if it blocks up faster because I'm using a little bit more oil in my gas than it calls for.
That's a really great question, and you have actually answered your question. Every saw wheel, you'll get some carbon. Any engine that burns a fuel is going to create some kind of a carbon buildup. But you're right. The more oil that's in your fuel mixture, it's going to create more more residue, more carbon buildup. And most saws, you can take your muffler off and your spark arrestor, and you can clean them, and you probably do that where you're aware of that you've been having the issue. And right, so there's our muffler. Now, different makes use different sizes, a little bit different shapes, but they basically are the same. There's 2 bolts that bolt them on. Your spark arrestor's in here, so you can take them off. You can give them a bang and a tap and clean them out. You can soak them, you can put them into an ultrasonic cleaner. There's a lot of things you can do to remove that. But it is almost, if you're using a higher oil in your mixture than the saw is called for, you're going to get a bigger buildup sooner. But I understand a lot of folks like to throw a little bit more oil in just so that maybe the saw won't run as hot and there won't be as much of a concern as far as engine seizure. But that is the downside to doing that, is you're going to get more carbon in your muffler. That's a pretty good size blower for a small engine leaf blower. No wonder it moves so much air. What else you got, Sarah?
All right, this one is from a YouTube submission. Do you need a special tool to adjust the carburetor?
Good question. At one time, no. In days of old, when I first started working on this stuff, a blade or Phillips screwdriver was all you really needed. In modern day times, because of emission regulations, that the manufacturer is so confined as to what they have their engines producing for emissions, they've had to take away the option for the user to make adjustments to the carburetor, because the engine has to meet emission regulations or there's big trouble for everybody. So as you can see, if I can get this up so you can see the carburetor, and so this doesn't fly apart. You can see, get my fingers live. Okay, right here where my finger is. Pardon me for floating around, but there we are. See right here? Those are where your carburetor adjustments are. Now, you'll find that there's no slots in those. You can't get a screwdriver in there to do it. There is a special tool that servicers may have that'll fit that you can make that adjustment, but in today, this is a little bit older blower. New one you buy today will probably have that area completely sealed off. It'll be filled with epoxy, so you can't adjust anything. You may still be able to adjust your idle speed, but you won't have the option for adjusting your air screw or your high and low throttle adjustment. That's a good question, but it is something that's, being dictated to the manufacturer that they can't do that. It's just all a part about trying to save the environment and keep as much CO gas out of the atmosphere as possible.
Just so the folks who are joining in now are aware, we are talking gas versus electric and battery-powered leaf blowers. So if you have questions on either type, we are going to answer them, but the model that we are giving away is gas-powered, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so it's going to be, gas-powered one we're giving away, but we do have a battery-powered one on the bench to talk about components and maintenance and use and care.
There we go. Look at that. Is that not a beautiful thing? Who wouldn't want to have one of those? Can I put my name in? No.
You got to ask a question,
That was
Chris.
a nice thought.
Yeah, so in order to be part of the draw, you've got to ask a question on the products here.
Something else that can be a maintenance item on your gas leaf blower chainsaw weed trimmer is this little guy right here. And that is, depending on the manufacturer, it may be a primer bulb that when you're pushing this, it's priming the carburetor and intake with raw fuel that injects right into the throttle body, or it may be a purge primer in which it's actually pushing air to create enough suction to have fuel being ready for pickup. One, it's got air that's pushing through, the other style is actually pushing fuel. But either way, these over time, they're soft rubber, but they will over time get hard and they'll crack and split, or you'll push them in and they won't pop back out. So when you do that, you just need to change it. It's not an expensive part. Make sure you order the right one for your model number so you're not pushing too much fuel than what you really should, and so that it fits in properly. Very easy to change, and we can pretty well get them shipped to you in a matter of a couple of days. These also have an ignition coil. So this is your ignition coil. This is what has your spark plug wire coming from, going to your spark plug. So this is what creates the high voltage to create a spark. And that's accomplished when your flywheel turns. There's a set of magnets on the flywheel. And see if I can show them to you. See those little dark colored squares? Those are magnets. And when they pass by the ignition coil, they create an excitement in the coil that gives you a high voltage that is sent out to your spark plug, and that's what gives you that nice bright blue spark when they go. Ignition coils are pretty strong. You don't have to replace them a lot. If the wire that goes from the coil to the spark plug starts to crack and split, you're going to lose a lot of that electric energy. You're going to get a weak spark, so you'll want to replace it. And that typically comes with the ignition coil. Ignition coils over time will sometimes, just again through heat and wear and tear, they may allow some moisture to get in, and they'll crack and split open, or the circuit will just open up altogether, so you'll need to replace it. But again, side cover comes off, a couple of screws, and you're able to swap that out. The only thing you do need to do is find out the proper gap between the ignition coil, armature, and your flywheel. If it's too close, it's going to scrape, and that's not good because you're going to start to damage things. If it's too far away, you're not going to get as strong a spark as you should. So look in your owner's manual. It'll give you that gap distance, and you can just, usually it's just the thickness of a couple pieces of paper, and you can set your gap gauge. Really easy to do, easy to change, and not hard to get the part. What else you got, Sarah?
All right, give me a second here. We've got tons of questions coming in. I'm trying to enter everyone's name on the ballot so we don't miss you.
You're never going to find my name in there, Brian, with all those. Definitely not going to find mine.
Okay, since you've got the gas one in front of us,
Yep.
how do you change a pull cord on the blower?
Oh, great question. And pull cord is probably on, we're talking leaf blower today, but chainsaw or, there we are, chainsaw or leaf blower or weed trimmer. That's your starter. There's your starter rope. There we go. So you can see when you pull your starter rope, it's turning that spool. It's got a set of lugs that engage into the flywheel, and that's what turns the engine. Now the rope basically feeds through the housing down to this spool. And you will, if I can get to it, see where the string comes through and goes into this sprocket. So in some cases you can actually buy it like this, the housing and everything already with the rope on it, and it's just a matter of some screws and you can swap the whole assembly out. Otherwise you're looking at replacing the rope, and I mentioned earlier, if you are replacing your starter rope, it's best to order the correct one for your model. There's a certain length, some are longer than others. If you string it yourself with just the line that you guesstimated as to how long it is, you can wind up giving yourself too short a pull or a really long pull, and will start to bind and go slack inside and cause you all kinds of grief. As well as the thickness of the cord is very important. If it's too thick, it's going to start to bind up as it goes in, and when you try to pull it out, it's going to bind. If it's too thin and not rated properly, it's going to wind up breaking on you. And then what's left of the line just spins around inside, and you're back to doing the same repair again. So if you need a starter rope, and you will eventually, there's no question, every one of these with a pull start eventually needs a rope. So great time right now just to order it up, again, with your model number, and it'll give you the right line, the right size, the right length, and we can send it to you right to your house. Good question.
We have a question. We've got lots of questions on YouTube, but this one from Sharon, they are asking, do you need to drain the gas to store the blower during the winter?
That's a very popular question, and there's two schools of thought on it. Um, Half the people will say definitely drain the gas out, pour it out into your gas can, whatever you want to do, get the gas out of it, then run it dry. And the other school of thought is fill your gas tank right to the brim and put in some fuel additive that'll keep the gas from going stale for about 3 months. So depending on the length of time that you're storing your product, you typically will have two options as to which way to go. Um, if you leave the gas in and put in stabilizer, then at least you know that the seals in the carburetor and the fuel lines are being kept moist. They're not going to dry out and crack. But you know, if you run it dry, then you know there's no condensation in there either. So both ways work. Personally, myself, I like to fill them and put in some fuel stabilizer, and then in the spring I'm good to go. But I will say, if it's been a long winter or a long gap before I'm bringing the tool back out again, even though I put fuel stabilizer in, I'm going to just dump that gas out and put fresh in. So hopefully that answered your question.
Awesome. Switching over to our electric version,
Yes.
what sort of runtime or battery life do those typically get?
Good question. Oh boy, it so depends. It depends on the size of your battery, and it depends on the temperature you're using it in. So as we talked about earlier, wintertime, you're not going to get a lot of runtime on that battery as you would in the summer. And depending on your make and model, they'll have different size battery options that you can go with. So if you've got a large property and you're running it a lot, you'll want to look for the biggest battery capacity you can get for it. And you know, if your grass that you're looking to blow away or whatever, leaves or whatever, are fairly light and dry, then you're not going to be working it as hard, so it will last longer. There's some convenience in using gas because you don't have that worry of batteries failing on you. I run a cordless leaf blower, and you know, I have to make sure I've got my larger batteries, and I keep one in my back pocket because I know I'm going to wind up having to swap it out partway through my job. So things are moving along, and you'll notice that, you know, on screen we got that Echo leaf blower giveaway. Just want to make mention that, you know, Echo's been a great partner with us, and in fact they've made it possible for us to have it as a giveaway. So special thanks to them. We really appreciate their cooperation and help us put these videos together. So what else you got, Sarah?
There are lots of questions from various folks about fuel, whether it needs to be premium grade, premix, does it work better with a higher grade? So why don't we talk about fuel needs for these machines? Yeah,
then it is a very common question. There's a lot of folks that are wondering that very question. You know, can I use higher octane? Can I use a different mix that comes in, change in ethanol or alternate fuels and stuff like that? The rule of thumb is what the manufacturer's owner's manual states for fuel is what you should use. Whatever the octane rating that they say you should use, that's what you should use. Not saying you can't get it to run on other stuff, but you do, you know, if you want your tool to run long and be trouble-free, use the octane rating they have. And again, if we're talking two strokes and you're mixing oil, you need to make sure you use the right amount. Too little oil, you're going to overheat it and seize it up. Too much oil, you're going to wind up with some performance issues and some maintenance things you're going to have to do, such as we talked earlier about cleaning mufflers. The easiest thing in the world is using a fuel, something like this. True Fuel, it's already pre-mixed. This is a 50-to-1. You can get it in 40-to-1 as well. And this takes all the guesswork out of it. Now this is great for, you know, just the average homeowner that's, you know, using the saw for around the camp, cottage, or, you know, maintenance on their own property. This just takes all the brain power out of the whole equation. Find out what your saw takes for a mix. Your owner's manual has it. It's usually stamped on your tool as well, and you're good to go. So that just makes life easier. Now, for those of you who are using your saw probably professionally and running a lot of a lot of fuel through your tools, you'll pretty much know what your mixture is, and you're probably doing your own premix, and that's fine. You know what happens if you run too lean on oil, and the grief you wind up with if you go too heavy on the oil. So you guys know your tools. You know what you need to do as far as your gas mix. It's the folks like me that only use them, you know, occasionally when I need to, once in a while, that something like this is just, you know, the answer. Pre-mixed, and this stores a really long time. This is terrific because you can just take the cap off, pour what you need, and what you don't use, put the cap back on, and it has a long shelf life, more so than you'll find in your plastic gas can. So another thing to mention is, as we're talking about these tools, few screws is all I had to take out in order to separate and open this up. You know, in order to find my carburetor, it's just in behind here. It's sitting right there. You know, in carburetors, things happen. Stuff gets in them, dirt, whatever. But, you know, you can clean a carburetor, and there's carburetor kits for them. You can also just, if you're not comfortable in doing a carb kit replacement, you can buy an entire carburetor, and they're not as expensive as you would think. And if you're looking to, you know, get your tool up and running and you don't want the hassle of tearing it all apart just to replace the kit, the carburetor is probably the way to go. And again, just go to your part site, ideally our part site, and put in your model number, confirm. A lot of them will ask, confirm that the serial number is there, that matches the model number you're looking for, and we can send you that carburetor right to your home. And it's easy to change. You can do it yourself. You don't need to have to take it to a repair shop and pay that additional labor. And you'll find on most of our parts, we have instructional videos on how to change the part that'll guide you through the process.
All right, some questions on use. How heavy are they, gas versus electric, and how noisy are they?
Great questions. And I actually have some answers for you. So if we're talking weight-wise, this gas-powered one I have here is about 9.4 pounds. The electric one with the battery, I'm sorry, the cordless one with the battery is 6.2 pounds. Now, a larger capacity battery would add to that would be about 6.5 pounds. And that doesn't sound like a lot, 6 to 9, 3 pounds, but if you're walking around with the tool in one hand, which you typically do unless you're a backpack model, and you know, even with the trigger locked on, that extra 3 pounds can, you know, take a little bit of wear and tear on you unless you're in pretty good shape. But again, you know, if you've got a large property, you don't have an option. You're either going to have a whole lot of batteries on you, or go with the gas where you get longer run time. And as far as those weights, the one we're giving away is probably the heaviest of the three we have here right now. It's 9.8 pounds. It's 0.4 pounds heavier than what this one is. But it's actually, the one we're giving away is actually the quietest, because that was the other part of the question, is how much noise. This guy right here runs and rated at about 112 decibels. And I test ran it earlier with a sound meter, and I was at full throttle with the sound meter up by my ear. I was getting around 90 decibels. So then I took the cordless one that you see that's all apart, and when it was all together, I did the same test, and the manufacturer rates it at 86 decibels for a noise level. When I did my test with my sound meter again up by my ear and running at wide open full speed at the level that you would typically hold your leaf blower, it was more likely my sound level was down to around 70 decibels. So certainly quieter than the gas one. And for sound level, the one we're giving away is actually the quietest. It's rated from the manufacturer at 70 decibels. Now, I wasn't going to open it out of the box because I want whoever's getting it to get it brand new in the box. But I have no doubt if I was to do that exact same test with the sound meter near my ear, I would be below that 70 decibels, which is pretty quiet. And when you look at the fact that it's a little bit of weight, but it's quieter, And power-wise, it's one of the most powerful. So there's some great technology built into that Echo that allows you to get that kind of performance, but still have that reduced sound level. And you know, sound level is a good thing to be talking about, because any of this gear that you run for a considerable period of time, be it your grass trimmer, your leaf blower, lawnmower, whatever, all that sound that you're having around you while you're working the tool does take a toll on your hearing. You'll notice professionals wear ear protection, and they're not worried about whether they look funny or the neighbors are going to laugh at me because I got these red headphones and earphones on, you know, doing my little lawn. The point is you're not going to be damaging your ears. And, you know, when we're young and foolish, we don't worry about things like that. But when we start getting around my age and you start saying, huh, what? You realize it would have been good to wear that safety protection. And you know what, even all these tools, safety protection, safety glasses. You know, these guys are turning up, what did we say, somewhere around maximum air velocity, somewhere around 120, 130 miles an hour. You get a piece of a twig or a small pebble or stone moving at that kind of speed that ricochets. If that gets near your eye, it's going right into your eye or right through your eye. So again, safety glasses, hearing protection, gloves. Heavily recommend gloves, especially if you're using a trimmer. But leaf blowers as well. It doesn't take, you'll be amazed at how much that's picking up. Even if you're clearing some clippings away and you're in an area where there's some sand, yeah, it'll pretty well sandblast it right back in your face if it's a windy day and you're leaf blowing. So anyway, safety equipment's important.
Got a question from an email listener asking, is there ever a need to take the side cover off the blower and completely clean and degrease the entire engine?
I would only look at taking it completely apart if I felt that the intake, now if you were to look at this manufacturer, its intake screen, you can see there's not a lot of big openings. So you're not going to get a lot of junk through there. But, you know, when the leaves are brittle and they tend to break up and they're flying through the air while you're working, it can get into it. And when it is, it's getting into that flywheel and they typically get chopped up. But they will, in some cases, they wind up plugging up the veins in the cylinder head. This is a really good question you've asked because it is important. So if you can see back beyond this ignition coil, these fins, so I'm going to bring you up nice and close so you can see those fins, if I tilt this the right way. There we go. See those guys past the ignition coil? There we are, right down in there. Anyway, those are the fins for the cylinder head. If they get blocked up with debris, that's going to restrict the airflow. That is so important. You'll notice the flywheel. You ever wonder why they have these little curved sections and why there's all this open space? Well, that's a big fan. And that's blowing air up that's going to blow through those slots in the cylinder head to help cool it. So to your question, if you get debris in there and it's gunked up, you're going to start restricting airflow. Your engine's going to start running hotter, and you do risk, you know, something warping or seizing up. So yeah, it's not a bad idea. If you can look inside this grill and you're seeing a bunch of material in there, yeah, it's worth taking it apart. Again, just a few screws and you can get that off. This one actually pops open. This is hinge because this one can also take an adapter to make this a pickup, you know, a vacuum. Basically, it winds up being a vacuum for picking up your grass clippings. So yeah, if you're looking through there and you're seeing a bunch of stuff and you can't get it out, yeah, by all means, take it apart and clean that out. Take an air hose and just basically, you know, blow the air out of there. Wear your eye protection and your gloves and clean that out. So that's a really great question. I'm glad you asked that. And the electric one's not any different. The back end or the intake of that cordless one, again, has a grill. Now it's on the very back, so you don't tend to get a whole lot of material coming up back at you towards the back. Excuse me. But with the kind of machinery and motor, it's not a big an issue as it is with the gas, because this is going to pull anything through it, and it's going to basically shoot it out the other side of the motor. But for your gas one, yeah, if you see a bunch of debris, you'll want to take it apart and clean it out. Excellent question.
All right, I had to scroll back to find these ones. So our friend Eric has a backpack blower.
Yeah.
Has been running around fine for years, but recently it starts making this horrible rattle. So when you let off the throttle, it idles fine. When you hit the throttle, it's got high RPMs and makes a rattling sound.
Okay, first thing comes to mind is I'd be thinking that there's a loose baffle in the muffler. In most of the mufflers, there's little, they're baffles, we call them, pieces of metal fins that guide that exhaust. One, to give a little bit of back pressure. Two, to assist in the flow to go through the spark arrestor. But sometimes those will break off, and that might be where that rattle's coming from. Otherwise, on those engines at those kind of speeds, if it was something that was internal in the engine, it probably would have flown apart by now. So I'd be tempted, when you get a chance, pop that muffler off, give it a shake, tap it on the bench, and see if you can hear something rattling around inside.
Another similar question from YouTube is their leaf blower only runs with the choke half open. Otherwise runs good. What should be the first thing that they check?
Okay, great question. Matter of fact, this one right here does exactly that. This thing starts up so nice, it's almost, first or second pull with full choke. But as soon as you let it warm up and take the choke off, it starts to just stumble and rough idle and eventually quit. So this basically, there's something that's in the carburetor that's causing the problem. If I start to ease the choke back on, the thing just works like a charm. So what I'm doing when I'm engaging that choke is I'm starting to increase the airspeed through the body of the carburetor. So it's actually leaning out the mixture a little bit. No, I lied to you, I'm sorry. It's actually leaning out the air, so you're getting a bit more fuel. So it's compensating for the fuel flow not making it through the carburetor into the cylinder the way it should be. So there's a fuel passage somewhere in your carburetor that's either just got some buildup in it or some gunk. I mean, the saw runs great, so it's eventually getting fuel, but you're having to change the air percentage in order to get it to do that. And if you start messing with your mixtures, one, you don't have a saw or a tool that you're able to, blow leaves without having to keep fooling with the choke, or you're going to mess up the mixture far enough that you may start to overheat the engine. So that's what it is. There's something in your carburetor, and it's going to be worth for you when you have the opportunity to either pull the carburetor apart or just see what the price is and whether you want to bite the bullet and replace the carburetor. If you order a carburetor, they typically come with your O-ring and gasket for where they mount to your air filter body and where it attaches to the cylinder. They usually come with those gaskets. If not, even if you're doing a carb kit, the full kit will come with those gaskets as well, plus the ones that go right in the body of the carburetor.
All right, this is a good one on battery-powered equipment. Can you use the same battery in your blower as you would your weed eater?
Yes, if they're the same brand of tool. The one that I was showing you, the cordless one, you probably noticed it's got Makita on it. It's a Makita brand. So if you're running 18-volt Makita product, drill, weed trimmer, lawnmower, yeah, the batteries just swap. They're interchangeable. If you have a DeWalt leaf blower and, you pick the brand, another brand of a cordless tool, the batteries probably won't marry up. You won't be able to interchange them. So there are companies that make adapters that you can try and adapt the batteries on so that they'll fit multiple tools. There's just some hesitation with those because the connections when you go to do that aren't always as tight as when you actually slide your battery into the tool or into the charger. so it doesn't necessarily lock in. So you're going to wind up with either the connections in your battery and your tool are going to start to arc a little bit, and you just wind up causing some damage. So the answer to your question quickly is, if you're looking to have cordless stuff, the batteries need to be able to go from same brand tool to same brand tool. Boy, we're getting lots of response today. This is awesome. And we really appreciate it. I mean, we're looking to give something away, but we really appreciate the participation, because the questions you're asking and we're answering for you, there's probably a lot of other folks that are watching that, didn't even realize that they were having an issue until we start talking about some of the stuff, or whether it's something they could even fix or do. So thanks very much for sending in all these questions. We appreciate the participation.
One question we had was, how do you get your blower to start up easier? If you're having a hard time starting it up, what are some ways you can get it to start up easier?
Well, good question. If it's not starting the way it used to, in order to get it started easier, you have to try and find out why. So are we talking about a poor spark problem? Are we talking about a fuel problem? Is your starters, slipping so that it's not, spinning up as fast as it should when you go to start it? Is the choke not engaging? So that's some obvious, that usually falls under general maintenance. Worst case scenario, you may have an engine that maybe it ran a little, too lean and got too hot, or not enough lubrication, and it may have scored the cylinder, and you don't have as much compression as you should have in that cylinder. So when you go to start it, there's not as much of an explosion when that spark happens. So it just doesn't spin up fast enough to keep going on its own. So yeah, scored cylinder, worn piston rings, overheated engines will sometimes warp the cylinder, so it's not nice and round, it's oblong shape, and again, you start to lose compression. So you kind of got to do a little diagnostic there to try and determine what it is. There's even some models that have split crankcases that over time, just through expansion and stuff, the seal between the crankcases may go and you're losing pressure in the crankcase. That's not common, but it does happen. If you're concerned about the cylinder itself, you can take your muffler off, take your spark plug out, and shine a light in and just rotate your starter, looking into where the muffler is, and look to see when the piston slides down out of the way, if you're seeing a bunch of scores in your cylinder. If it's nice and shiny and smooth, that's great. If you're finding score marks or discoloration like blue steel where it's gotten too hot, then you've got a cylinder problem, probably due to lack of lubrication.
We are coming up in the last 5 minutes or so.
Oh.
I am going to stop reading out questions so I can start writing everyone's names down.
Okay.
But we had a couple more come in on PPP. So do you need to wear eye protection when blowing grass? Do you need to wear hearing protection when using these blowers? So maybe I'll just have you give another summary on.
And that's a perfect question, and it's definitely worth repeating. Yes, you should wear safety protection. Safety glasses for sure. You're talking whether you're trimming grass or blowing grass, twigs, whatever, leaves, there's definitely a risk of something getting in your eye. It can happen so easily and so fast. So yes, for the sake of a pair of safety glasses, and for those folks who wear glasses like I do, it's a bit of a pain to find, good safety glasses that are comfortable to wear, but they're really important. Gloves as well. That debris can just as easily send a small stone or a sliver of wood, especially if you've got a lot of bark mulch and stuff on your gardens. That can come back at you and, drive something right underneath the skin. So gloves, safety glasses, and definitely hearing protection. And that applies to the electric or gas. Gas is a little louder, electric are a little quieter, but you're going to be out there for a while with that steady drone at a decibel level that's, can take a toll on your hearing. So either noise canceling earbuds or, those pretty red ugly headphones. It's worth looking silly and having, you know, even if the neighbors tend to laugh, you know, look at him just, you know, using a leaf blower. I don't put on any protection when I use my leaf blower, but you want to be able to hear in years down the road, so safety protection definitely. And for those who are running chainsaw, even if you're just the homeowner that's, you know, dicing up some small wood and stuff, steel toe shoes, absolutely. And you know what? Chainsaw pants or chaps are not that expensive. And you talk to anybody who runs chainsaws for a living, they'll tell you right up front, it's not if you cut yourself, it's when you cut yourself. It's got to happen. So if you get relaxed or too comfortable or not paying attention, a chainsaw cut can happen so fast, and yeah. So for the sake of the extra price, you know, pair of chainsaw pants or the chaps that you can just wear over your regular jeans or whatever, it's worth doing. It may never happen. You may be one of the lucky ones, but if it does, you'll be glad that you're wearing them. Anyway, more
That's the same as-
safety gear all the way.
It's just like buying insurance. You never want to need it, but you're glad you have it when something
That's right.
goes wrong.
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, a chainsaw scar is not sexy.
All right, so to summarize this entire stream, let's do a recap on gas versus electric, pros and cons,
Okay.
and when's the best time for each.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so comparison, talking about pros and cons of gas and electric. Let's bring our little electric buddy back in here. So, electric, lighter, more convenient, less maintenance. Batteries is the weakness. You need multiple batteries. And they do have a lifespan. You'll only get so many charges out of a battery. It's not because it's not a good battery, it's just they have a lifespan. So price involved in batteries, along with the convenience and the beauty of using cordless. Like I said, they're lighter, easy to work with, a little quieter, do a great job. I think they're marvelous with this cordless stuff. Gas, now you're talking a little louder, a little heavier. So you've got to get a little bit more muscle in your arms from running this one a little bit longer. You get a bigger power fuel supply that you're going to be able to go with, so you're running longer. The only downside is you tend to have a bit more maintenance. So that's something you got to keep in mind, is the gas one will require a bit more maintenance, a bit more precision as far as fuel mixture, no matter whether you mix your own or you're making sure you get the right fuel for yours. Make sure it's either the 40-1, 51, or whatever your saw requires. Make sure you get the right mixture. So if you're in the contracting world, you'll probably find you're going to be looking at gas all the way, and you'll probably grin and smirk at the electric. But at the same time, I'm finding in talking to folks out in the trade, the guys running the power lines that are out there in the storms that are having to cut down branches and trees off the wires, they're starting to run with cordless more and more because they're lighter and much easier just to throw a battery in to do their little job than be messing around with gas and stuff like that. So there's a place for electric and there's a place for gas, and it's whatever you like. Keep in mind, if you're going with electric, if you're looking to have batteries and you want to consider what other tools you may want to be able to use with those batteries, look at their lineup. Check and make sure that the tools you tend to want to be able to use, be it a weed trimmer, mower, whatever, that you can use those same batteries. It's just, you know, we've all gotten into the situation where we've had multiple brands, multiple batteries, multiple chargers, and yeah, it's just a nightmare. So the other thing to do is we want you to think about subscribing to our channel. If you found this information today useful, or if you have questions on any of our lives about other gas products or a different subject than we're talking about, even whether it be appliances or whatever, you know, by all means, this is a great forum to do it. So, you know, you can find a lot of information on our websites, whether you're looking at partselect.com or ereplacementparts.com. And I think you want to flip that over.
I'm sure
Oh,
this
that
is
makes it show up. Look at that. That's why you're the producer. So there you go. That's how you can find us. And, you know, you'll find a ton of information at our sites. Not just about selling you the part, but why you might want to change it, why you probably need to change it, how soon you can get it, what the warranty is. And again, anything we sell is OEM, which means the people that built your product, it's the exact same part that they used to build it. And trust me, if you bought an aftermarket and you hold it in your hand and look at the part that you're taking out and there's a difference in weight, you got to stop and think, why would the manufacturer spend the money to make something heavier? Because it needs to last and it needs to support their brand. It needs to be reliable. So, you know, you may not be saving when you start looking at the other route. So if you buy from us, it's strictly OEM. It's going to fit. It's going to work the same as the part that you're replacing. Well, hopefully better, because you wouldn't be replacing it if it was working right. But you get my point. So anyway, we're here for you. We've got your parts that you need. We've got some information on how to change it and why you'd want to change it. And you can always reach out to us if you've got a question, and we'll see if we can answer it for it. So are we close to doing our draw?
Let's do it.
All righty. And again, as we do the draw, we want to say a special thanks to Echo for providing us with the leaf blower, and we know whoever gets it's going to really enjoy having it. And we're kind of hoping that whoever we draw and we send it to will let us know that they got it, what they think of it, and if they can do a little video or something, then we would love to see that as well.
Yeah, shout out to our past winners, Eric and Zombie Dave, who have joined us both today and asked questions. So thanks, guys, for joining again.
Yeah, and I'm scared to ask Zombie Dave what he's doing with the chainsaw, but, you know, have at her, bud. Okay, so we do have a winner for our Echo leaf blower, and it is Bob Z. There you go. So Robert, you've got a leaf blower coming your way, and that is pretty exciting. And everybody that's joined us today, everybody that sent in their questions, and those that were just listening to the conversation, thanks very much for being here. We do this because, sure, we want to sell parts, but we want to help you, and we want you to have the confidence to be able to do most of these basic repairs and maintenance things yourselves. So at this point, I'm going to say thanks very much. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe. We'd love to have you following us so you can see more of our videos, participate in more of our giveaways. And if you have any questions, you can always throw them in the comments. So thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you next time.